So how do we translate that same thing into these other areas, the growing of food and the production and making of safe water? One of the biggest things we have to even think about is not even renewable. We have to think about how we're going to restore our current infrastructure, which is beginning, bridges and water systems and those kinds of things that are starting to show their age and break down and need investment.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the wonderful thing about climate change solutions is many of them are actually a cheaper way to get our old infrastructure fixed. The reason why they're not being embraced with gusto is because there's a lot of folks who have been there since our father and grandfather were in those positions, and are saying, I don't want to do things differently. I don't want to clean water using new membrane technology from Dow and DuPont. I want to figure out a way to take the biological waste and actually use it in a methane, gas recovery system within the wastewater treatment facility to drastically reduce my electricity bills. Yeah. Right? I don't want to use water cogeneration within pipes because I don't know, where that money is going to come from through my budgets. Right? And so we can fix all those things with the business model innovation. So, for instance, a lot of these technologies actually have much higher costs up front, but much lower operating costs, right? And so most of these guys are saying, well, we can't do it because it's double the price up front. Well, we can bring private sector capital that'll fund that upfront stuff as long as the operation savings are passed on to the private sector over time so that they get a fair rate of return. I'll give example. So in pipe cogeneration, like Electricity and Lucid Energy, get too much, so then they have to put a pressure valve in that actually dissipates that pressure. Otherwise, it'll come out of your sink like a bat out of hell. And so instead of actually wasting that energy, that potential energy in that pressure valve, you can actually put a unit in from Electricity or Lucid or other companies that'll actually reclaim that energy, reduce the pressure, but reclaim that energy at less than 5 cents a kilowatt hour, and help the utility to reduce their electricity bills.
I had no idea. That's a new one I haven't heard of. Cool. And I assume there's got to be other innovations and things out there that are like that, given a chance, can really address this problem. Look, of course, one of the things that I'm concerned about is we have these very powerful companies, and be they utilities, be they oil and gas companies, be they coal companies. They have an enormous amount of financial power at their disposal. I mean, basically, like you said, they're monopolies. The other thing is, because of that, they have a lot of political power. And so it seems to me they have a vested interest in the status quo, keeping things the way they are. An example being is I went to one of Bill McKibben's 360-degree meetings where he's talking about how all of these fossil fuel companies have already enough of fossil fuel reserves on the books, so to speak, to essentially cook the planet if all of that were extracted. And a recent report, I think, that I just saw last week said that really if we're going to even address this problem, we can't even use it. We can't use more than about 10% of what these companies actually have on the books. So how do you get these companies to think differently? I mean, you're not going to stop them. I mean, they have this sort of fiduciary responsibility to their investors and shareholders, to their employees. How do you get them to think differently so that they don't go out and exploit all of these resources they have available and essentially cook the planet?
Well, look, I mean, I think that there's some outrage within 350.org are about. And I do think over the last 30 years, we've had a really hard time with bringing moral outrage to the surface. And now that we have Facebook and things, there's a lot of folks who want to email their congressman and like something on a Facebook page. But the number of people who actually want to go out in the streets and really rattle the chains of our elected officials are only folks on the Tea Party side. I don't think our side actually, really shows up as often as it should. Yeah. And so that's a conversation we should have. Now, on the climate wealth side, which is the side that I'm talking more about the inspiration side and the hope side. And I do think that we have not focused on hope and inspiration. People don't want to be scared to death and then not given hope on how to get out of this situation. And that's what we've done in the last 6 years. We've told people everything is going badly, the ecosystems are failing, people are dying in Bangladesh, it's on your hands, you should actually sit in your house, never fly anywhere, never drive your truck, and never actually come out of your bedroom.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think people are inspired by that. I think they're inspired by climate change solutions. And when you think about where we are today, oil prices are 5 times higher than they were in 1999. Right, we were at $20 a barrel back then.
Yeah.
Now we're at $105 a barrel.
Yeah.
Today, we are bankrupting entire countries because they cannot afford to import the diesel fuel and the process fuels necessary to actually run their economies.
Yeah.
We have solutions to that problem. Remember, the 1970s Arab oil crisis is the reason we have the Department of Energy today. Their job was to invest in technologies necessary for us to stop our addiction to oil. We today have solutions around ethanol, methanol, electric vehicles, switching to natural gas from diesel and a heavy truck infrastructure. The reason that hasn't happened is because of business model innovation, not because the big bad oil companies have been in the way. The reason this hasn't happened is because people like you and me haven't gone to our local town and said, look, can I help you switch out all of your fleet vehicles to natural gas and save 15% on your fuel bill in the process? Your local town today, when oil prices were $20 a barrel, paid, pick a number, let's say 5% of their total budget was for fuel.
Yeah.
Today, that number is probably 3 times higher than that.
Yeah.
Right? Where did that money come from? They didn't come from higher taxes. In most cases, it came from cutting services to the people.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have an economic and moral case to switch all of the fleet vehicles in every single state in this country to natural gas, to electric vehicles, to methanol, to ethanol, to other alternative fuels right now. Now, do we have the public refueling infrastructure to allow everybody to buy a natural gas vehicle? Maybe not. But we certainly have the ability for all of our fleet vehicles to move over right now. And as soon as that happens, I guarantee you, getting everyone into a natural gas vehicle won't be that far away. I think it's time for us to stop blaming others for our failure in our ability to actually make change within our sphere of influence. We need to be demanding that our local high school that we attended, that the colleges that we attended, that the mayors that we know, and the elected officials that we know start implementing solutions that save real money so that we can reduce taxes for everybody.
You sound very passionate about this.
Well, I'm not only passionate about it, I actually think there's no other way for us to get onto a growth trajectory.
Yeah.
The United States of America invented almost all of these technologies, from solar power to wind power to all of the fuel processing technologies that I'm talking about around natural gas and ethanol. And we actually are getting so much demand for these technologies externally. The German embassy actually holds an event in every single country that it participates in the world to introduce the local country to the climate change solutions providers from Germany. We don't do that in the United States.
Yeah.
Right? And they're clamoring for it. People in India are paying so much more for fuel, and the Indian government is going bankrupt. So they've actually reduced fossil fuel subsidies on top of that. So the cost of fuel in India has gone through the roof.
Yeah.
Right? This is the largest wealth creation opportunity on the planet. And you and I both know that when we go to a college campus and address the students, and you say to them, how many of you want to start a 40-year career right now in the oil and gas sector? There's maybe 8 hands that go up. Out of 1,000.
Yeah.
When you say how many of you want to work in electric vehicles, climate change solutions, solar, wind, etc., almost everyone's hands go up.
Everybody goes up, right? They get it.
So we have the ability to win. What we don't have are the people on the entrepreneurship side with the lessons necessary to actually successfully run a business here. And it's really about business model innovation, not about technology innovation. Even people with brand new electric vehicle technology need to figure out a business model innovation to get them out into the marketplace.
Yeah.
Right? And we need to educate investors and say to them, look, you need to be investing in people with business model innovation, not in people who have the best whiz-bang technology and no possible chance of getting it in the marketplace, a la what Vinod Khosla seems to do all the time.
Yeah.
And then, we need to educate the government officials and say, look, we have a problem on our hands. We are behind on fixing our bridges and our roads. We're behind on fixing our water infrastructure. We're behind on replacing all of our 50-year coal plants and 50-year natural gas plants and nuclear plants with new operating plants, right? And we can do it right this time. Look, I get the fact that we didn't have the knowledge that we had 50 years ago around cooking the planet and all these other things, but we do now. So we now have the ability to put in wind energy, which is now the cheapest possible source of energy that can be installed in this country right now is wind energy.
Yep.
Cheaper than natural gas at these ridiculously low prices that won't stay there, and cheaper than coal, cheaper than nuclear. And so I just think that we have this problem where we as concerned citizens have got to actually talk about this in a way that involves passion and not just facts.
And you certainly have that, Jigar. I can obviously tell that that's there. Look, besides launching the book, what are you focused on now? What you've been at BP Solar, you've been at founded SunEdison, you worked at the Carbon War Room, you've now written a book. You're obviously out launching that and talking about the book. Where are you at now?
Well, I have learned a lot from those experiences. I think, I tried to sell BP my SunEdison idea. And so, I know how calcified these companies are, and I no longer think that these large corporations are going to be part of the solution. I just don't. Now, GE and Siemens and those guys, they're engineering companies, and they probably will be part of the solution because whether they invent it in-house, do it externally, they'll buy it. But what I'm doing is figuring out how to get people who have latched onto this idea of business model innovation, the necessary capital to prove their thesis and to attract mainstream capital, right? So for instance, there's a company called Skyline Innovations. I set up a fund called Clean Feet, and it's generating 16 to 18% returns to accredited investors. And what we did was he had signed a whole bunch of solar hot water pay-as-you-go contracts for the dormitories for George Washington University and American University.
Okay.
When he went to the local banks, they said, there's no way we're going to fund this until 10 of our friends have funded it first.
Yeah.
Right? And so we put in the first $4 million into investing in his rooftop systems. We're making 16 to 18% returns. We got a piece of his company in warrants because of all the intellectual property we shared with him.
Yeah.
And as soon as he was able to prove his thesis, Washington Gas, which is the local natural gas supply company, put $20 million of money into his next projects and that's mainstream capital. Yeah. They've got shareholders and everything else, and they gave him money at more like 12% interest because they said that that's going to be a really good way for us to make money for our shareholders as well as participate in the innovation that's happening in society. But if it wasn't for our first $4 million, they wouldn't have put in their next 20.
Yeah.
Right, and we're doing the same thing with batteries with STEM. This company in California that is helping people save money on their demand charges by putting in battery storage units in their buildings and turning them on when their highest peak demands occur. Right. And our rate of return, again, is going to be 16 to 18% returns. And these guys are actually helping these companies save on usurious demand charges in California.
Yeah.
And as soon as we prove this model, more money is going to come in.
Yeah.
The last example I'll give you is hydroponic greenhouses. We've put money into a company called Bright Farms, and we're investing in their projects, not in the company, right? So we're not getting equity in the company, although we get a few warrants here and there. We're getting a current return. So every 3 months, they write me a check that I can cash in the bank.
There you go.
Right? And so this group builds a hydroponic greenhouse. They've signed a produce purchase agreement with McCaffrey's grocery stores in Philadelphia.
Okay.
McCaffrey's is getting the produce at a discount from what they pay to producers in California and Arizona. And the reason it's a discount is because almost 70% of the cost of landed lettuce, kale, arugula, and tomatoes from California for this grocery store chain is the transportation costs across the country.
Yeah.
70%. So this hydroponic greenhouse, they have double the price, of manufacturing, making these tomatoes, but they save net money because they don't have to pay for the diesel cost to transport the tomatoes thing.
Yeah.
And they last 4 to 5 days longer in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And so you get less wastage. And they're actually hiring people locally in the agricultural supply chain in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Right? And so once we prove this model, which we've already done about 75% of the way, they're getting a ton of interest from large insurance companies who want to invest in their next set of greenhouses.
Ah, okay. Well,
Right?
I have someone that I want to introduce you to, but first you have to come here to Omaha, and I will take you down in my basement and show you my aquaponics system with my largemouth bass, my kale, my Swiss chard, and my lettuce growing, and tomato plant growing wonderfully.
I think aquaponics is the next big thing. And
Yeah.
I met a company in Germany called ECF, and I forgot what it stands for, but they're out of Berlin, and they're selling franchised aquaponic systems around Germany. So, I think that this movement, we have invented many of the technologies that we need to stave off the worst impacts of climate change.
Yeah.
And I think we need to do more R&D. Don't get me wrong. Please don't think that I think we should stop innovation.
No.
But we need to be focusing a lot of our attention right now on helping these entrepreneurs who've been struggling for 10 or 20 years get their technologies, which are cost effective now, into the marketplace. And whether that's aquaponics, hydroponics, natural gas for vehicles, whether it's solar hot water, which, the largest market in the world for that right now is China, whether it's solar PV, or whether it's electric vehicles, we have got to start focusing and rewarding business model innovation, not just technology innovation.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I was thinking that, this is a perfect opportunity you see lots of these I think there's one coming up in New York here with, in about 10 days. That's one of these. We'll get the entrepreneurs together with the investment capital guys, and hopefully in the mix something will materialize. And I think that what I'm hearing you say is that what we kind of really need is almost seminars that coach entrepreneurs and investors in how do I take and create creative, if you will, develop creative business models.
That's exactly right. I think we need to attract a new set of investors who care about consistent long-term rates of return, not just, angel investing pops of, 10x returns on their money.
Right.
And we need to attract entrepreneurs who understand how business model innovation is essential to getting their new product out into the marketplace.
Yeah, yeah. Well, of course, at some point then we need to, off the record here, have a conversation about ePeddler.
Well, I have to say, I was in Germany, and the number of electric bikes all around there is extraordinary. And when I was meeting with the electric bike folks in Germany,
right,
they made it quite clear that they and all of their investors believe that the U.S. is going to be the next large market for e-bikes. And so I just can't wait.
Well, I have this wonderful new business model we should talk about.
We should.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to the book just briefly here. Where's it about? Where can people find it, and where can they learn more about it?
Well, our publisher is from Colorado, so we created a website called climatewealth.co.
Okay.
And so that's where you can get the latest on the book. We have discount codes there and that kind of stuff. You can also just go directly to Amazon.com and get a copy of the book today. Okay. And if you're buying in bulk, which is how we've actually sold a lot of books so far, a lot of the incubators, a lot of the investors, a lot of the other companies have actually bought 10 or more books for their board and their investors. And if you want to do that, you go directly to icosa.com, which you can get from the Climate Wealth website, and they can give you a big discount.
Okay, sounds great. Jigar, thank you so much, and continued success to you, and give the missus a big hug for me, will you?
I will. Thank you so much. And I would love to keep this dialogue going with you because
absolutely.
I think on the electric vehicle side, this business model innovation is going to be the key to unlocking it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. All right, talk to you later.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks.